gentle one or a really steep one. A smooth, consistent curve, I think really is what makes a successful bowl. So I'm sure most of you are kind of figuring out the more clay you have, the more challenging and difficult it is to center. That being said, if you have like 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds on there, something softball or larger, what you can do is use your palms by turning the wheel on very, very slowly as rotating. And your hands do need to be dry. If they're covered in slip and clay, it's not going to work. But what I'm doing is I'm slapping the clay simultaneously at the same time. And as you can see, it's kind of forming to like a rounded palm shape. This is going to be really helpful to kind of just generally get this mass of clay a little bit more centered without having to struggle through the process as much. So I'm going to start centering. And so another thing too, if you're trying to make a little bit of a larger bowl and you're still struggling with trying to get like 2 pounds centered, you can kind of break things into kind of sections. So I'm going to just kind of focus on centering. My left palm's pushing forward, my right fingertips are squeezing in. This palm is also pushing downward and in, and I'm just trying to like squeeze this clay like I'm squeezing a tennis ball. Starting my hands off soft and gentle, and then slowly adding more pressure. If I start off with my hands like as hard as I can, as rigid as I can, your hands and your forearms are going to get tired. So keep them soft and relaxed, and then slowly start to add more force. Everything's gradual. So I got this top portion centered, and the next thing I can do is just kind of work on this bottom section. So instead of trying to get this whole chunk together in one shot, I kind of break things into segments, making it a little bit easier. So then my palms are on the outside. They're slowly starting to add more pressure. I'm slowly grabbing this clay with my fingertips. I'm trying to squeeze in. And then I can kind of blend those two masses of clay together. So if you have like this clay kind of spilling down, kind of like a tree trunk, what that's going to do is it's going to kind of move and shift your wrists up and down and not allow you to actually move the clay. So sometimes what's helpful is getting your fingertips on the far end and kind of squeezing the clay inward. Your palms are going to have a really difficult time pushing forward trying to grab it, but your fingertips, they tend to have a little bit of an easier time to get that clay down. Another thing you can do if it's really spilling out too still, you can go ahead and kind of just take that clay away, because again, that clay is what's going to move your wrist up and down, making it a little bit more challenging to center. So once I do get my clay centered, and you know when it's centered, it's going to rotate nice and even and smooth, I can go ahead and start to open. So my left thumb is going to sort of make a dimple on top. I bend it, it naturally kind of wants to find the center. Then I'm going to attach it with my index. You can use your middle finger, you can use 2 fingers, whatever you want. But I'm slowly going to start to dive downward. And my thumb really isn't diving down, it's just really holding my right fingertip really stable and steady. I am going to be trimming a foot on this, so I do want to have my about that much on the bottom of my floor. Again, if you go too deep, something like this, it's not total loss, but just remember when you go to the trimming stage, you won't be able to trim that foot that's going to lift it up off the table. All you're left is just sort of taking away clay on this outside area. Take a measurement. So I'm going to go down a little bit deeper, but not much. So now that I've centered the clay and opened, aim to try to make a wide V rather than just like a hole in your clay. That way you can get your left hand all the way on the inside. So now I'm going to go directly into pulling and grabbing this clay and coming up and out. One thing you want to be careful is that you don't come out too far too quickly, because then the clay is going to flop down. So I would suggest trying to make a narrow, kind of steep bowl, something more like vertical, and then we can slowly open them up. Once they come out this far, all they want to do is get further and further until they fall down on the wheel. So sometimes it's helpful to use a sponge. So this clay wall is, pretty darn thick down at the bottom. So I'm going to have to push in longer and harder when I feel this clay starting to come up. I'm slowly going to start to follow it. I think most people that tried bowls yesterday found them to be a little bit easier than cylinders, and I would agree with that. They are a little easier on the fact that centrifugal force wants to bring this form out, right? When we're making a vertical form, centrifugal force wants to push things down. So again, my right fingertips are pushing in, but my left are pushing out just as equally as hard. Remember on our cylinders, my right hand was pushing in harder, trying to get this clay to come up. On bowls, it's equal pressure from the outside hand, equal pressure from the inside hand, and then I'm just coming up and out on an angle. Because centrifugal force is helping us out. It just wants to bring this form and make it wider. So that's in our favor. Setting yourself up between every bowl, meaning making sure there's a little bit of water or slip on the inside and the outside. So when we do go to make our next bowl, there's less of a chance that we're going to hit like a dry patch and things are going to go bad. So you will find though, just like on I think everything on the wheel, when you get closer to the rim, you have to ease off the pressure. For example, down here I'm pushing longer and harder, but as I slowly work my way to the rim, A, there's less clay, right? So you don't have to push as hard. And then B, for whatever reason, when you are closer towards yourself, you just have more strength and it's easier to move this clay. So you gotta soften up your pressure. I think another general rule of thumb too is as your form gets larger, taller or wider or both, you want to slow down your wheel speed. Imagine this larger bowl kind of zooming around super fast. Be aware that your rim, like this area, roughly right now, can only be like twice as wide as the foot, otherwise it's going to fall down. Sure, you can push it further, but that's just a general idea. So if you're wondering, well, how wide can I make this? I think however wide this is, your rim can be about double as wide. Some other things to think about too is as I'm making a bowl, this upper portion of the bowl is much wider, so it's taking a lot longer to make a full rotation. So as I get closer to the rim, my hands need to move up the wall of the pot at a much slower pace to account for this distance as it makes a rotation. So I got a bowl going on here. Shaping with bowls I find to be really satisfying, and I think beginners like it too because you just have a little bit more flexibility with how you can do things. I can use ribs on the inside, I can use my hand on the inside, I can use ribs on the outside. So you kind of can sort of address a lot with the shape without having to sort of struggle as much in a cylinder. So the first thing I'll recommend is just sort of holding the wooden rib on the outside with your left hand on the inside and just kind of compressing this wall, trying to smooth things out. If you want to, you can start shaping it by apply some more pressure. And slowly start to shape this bowl, make it a little bit wider. It's funny, this rib is like really curved. It's weird. You have options between your metal rib, your wooden rib. I think the wooden rib's a little bit more forgiving. One thing to be mindful of is that if you get this pointy end in the center, try your best not to go back or past the center point of the bowl because it's going to dig into the other side. The round edge is a little bit more forgiving if you have this in the center, but sometimes the shape you're going for isn't going to allow you to have that curved edge in there. Think about how you're holding your tool in terms of what type of curve it's going to get you. I can have my left hand on the inside holding the form. I can literally have two hands on the inside holding my rib. It's really up to you, but this is what I think makes bowls, I think, a little bit more satisfying, is that you have a little bit more control on how to, I wouldn't say more control, but you have more space to work in this area than you do with a cylinder. So again, we're trying to aim to make a smooth, consistent curve. The metal ribs are nice too because they can flex. So I can use this guy on the outside and kind of cup around my form. It's also going to give me a little bit of a smoother finish than the wood rib. I can use this guy on the inside. Some people will use either their left hand on the inside like this. I tend to use both. You can use your right hand. Some people will also, if they use their right hand, they'll take their left hand and kind of come back on the other side to help support the wall, to get a sense of where the clay's going and move it. So I have my bowl. I can go ahead and kind of clean up and compress my rim. I think in that little video he talks about like how there's like this aesthetic of like urban pots having like this feeling like they're made by factories, like a factory can do that or a machine. My bowl, like, it isn't perfect, but it's pretty darn round, right? There's definitely a little bit of a waver in the rim, but I'm not really too concerned about that. Like, this is a handmade piece. I don't really feel the need to try to make things perfect. I mean, I think striving for good form and good technique, but don't ever strive to make things perfect because no one is and there's no real point, I would say. But to each their own, find what design and aesthetic that you like. So I got some clay down here I'm going to take away. I'm going to start with my knife on the outside. I'm slowly going to push my tool, gradually working it all the way down until I hit the wheel. Now, be careful that you don't dig in too deep, because as you make your base more narrow, the chances of you going a little too far and then your bowl flopping down is a reality. So I'm going to stop there. Ideally, you should be throwing bowls anything wider or generally large on a bat. I didn't want to set one up just because I was lazy. So this guy's probably not going to come off that easy. I might be able to pick him up though. But when you leave them